Okay, so let's walk through the process of creating a video for your final presentation where you're going to present on the paper that you wrote, your final essay, whether that was on an ethical topic or a famous photographer, or if you're doing a critique of a mixed media artwork, depending on which of my classes you're in. Now, the program I'm going to be demonstrating is called Adobe Spark, or Spark Video in this case for the iPad. You have access to the basic version of this for free. If you prefer to use a different program that you're more comfortable with, whether that's like iMovie or something like that, you're welcome to do that as well. This is one that I personally like, so this is what I'm going to be walking you through today. Just make sure that whatever you use produces high quality content, and I don't want it to look like something that was, just quickly produced for Instagram. I want this to really have a professional edge to it. So let's open up Adobe Spark. Okay, so now that's open, we're just going to add content. So there's two ways you can go about this. Either you can start with a template that they build for you, or you can just start from scratch. I prefer to start from scratch in this case, that way I have a lot of flexibility with how I build my video. Okay, so we're going to go to Skip to Editor, and this will open just up a blank Spark file basically that allows us to add in all of our content. So see this little plus button in the middle, you just click on that and it should open up all of the videos that you can add in. So I've pre-recorded some content here that I can put in. You can also record directly in Adobe Spark, whatever you're more comfortable with. So one of the limitations of Adobe Spark is that it only lets you have 30 seconds of video on each slide. But if you've recorded a longer clip than that, all you have to do is come here to this little bar in the top right hand corner where you've got the scissors and this arrow and the speaker, and you just click the little arrow and it will continue your video on to the next slide. So then you just scroll it over to the maximum time, hit done, and you just do that until you have the entire clip on your presentation. Let's just find the end of that here. There we go. Okay. Now if you want to do a different sort of layout rather than just this talking head, you can click on this, an empty slide, you go up here where it says layout, and you've got some basic options here. Now if you want to put in videos of you flipping through a PowerPoint, all you've got to do is make a screen recording and upload that as a video. Or if you just want to add a photo of some sort of graphic you've designed, or a photo of from the photographer that you're reporting on, all you've got to do is here, go to your camera roll. Okay, sorry, so you got text, you can add text here, you can add photos, and plop in whatever it is that you are trying to discuss with the viewer. Let's talk about recording your presentation. So first of all, you're required to wear business casual, or if you'd like business formal, for this presentation. And the reason that I require this is because I want it to be an opportunity for you to practice the type of dressing, the type of presentation that you'd need if you were going in for an interview or meeting with a more formal client. And in my experience, there's not often enough opportunities to do this within college, so I'm trying to give you another one. So it's a really easy checkbox to tick on this assignment. Just get yourself dressed and presented nicely. Guys, white shirt or some sort of a collared shirt. You don't have to wear a suit coat if you don't want to. For women, wear at least a nice blouse. Obviously, we're just going to be doing a talking head type situation here, so really, you could be wearing your pajama bottoms and I wouldn't know, but at least here up needs to look business presentable. Do your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face. I'm not going to go on my soapbox right now how I think the expectation that women having to wear makeup in the workplace is a double standard, but unfortunately it is the standard. So when you go into an interview, there's kind of an expectation that, do yourself up a little bit. And then make sure you find a nice, well-lit place to record your presentation from. Utilize all the things that we've talked about this semester about finding good lighting, utilizing, in this case, I'm just using the window in my kitchen. I've got a nice backdrop here, something nice and simple, muted colors. Make sure that, you know, if you've got little siblings or other family running around, maybe do it at a time when they're outside playing, or, you know, they're in another room watching TV, put the dog away. That way you can really focus and not be interrupted. Because as I said, I want this to be an opportunity for you to practice what it might be like either, you know, working remotely with the way things are going right now, or doing an interview remotely, since there's probably going to be a lot of that this summer, or just any other circumstance where you might need to do that in the future. What I don't want to see is this. Yeah, so like today, let's talk about Ansel Adams. So like he was born, I think he was born in like 1923 or something, maybe. Yeah, he was a really cool photographer. So let's talk about a few tips for how to present well. First off, the most important thing is to present yourself confidently. Now, there's some nitty-gritty of what that might look like, but really it's about having a clear idea of what you want to say. It's about being passionate about what you want to say, and really thinking about how can I make the audience be as excited or interested or intrigued or even disturbed, depending on, you know, what it is that you're presenting about this topic, as I am. So first of all, an important thing is eye contact. So in this case, making sure that you're looking at the camera so that when I'm watching the video, I see your eye contact, because if you make eye contact with yourself on the iPad, it's not going to look like eye contact on the video, or whatever other device you might be recording the presentation on. Another thing is pacing yourself. You know, talking the same way that you would punctuate a sentence. So if you are dividing your paper up into paragraphs, into sentences, you're not going to talk like this and just have one thing go into the next, and then one thing, and oh, and this and that and the other thing, and okay, no taking breaths, and just one thing after another, and no pausing and no emphasis. You want to have dynamics to it. Pause. Give your viewers time to think. Take a breath when there would be a comma in a sentence. Pause when there might be a change of paragraph. Change your tone. A straight tone can get very boring very quickly. I'm sure all of you have experienced this at church. You know, kind of the trope within the LDS church is High Councilman Sunday, and just, you know, they get up there and they drone on and they drone on. Whereas all of you have experienced a sacrament talk that was really engaging, and a lot of times that has to do with the inflections in their voice and finding ways to communicate emotion, either through the inflection in your voice or through your hand gestures or your body language. All of these things can really communicate that you are excited, that you are passionate, that you are assured about the information that you're trying to share with, you know, whether this be, in this case, your professor, or whether it's a future employer, a potential employer, or you've already gotten a job and you're presenting a project that you need funding for. All of these are very important skills. Even if you're working as a freelance photographer, it's still very important, because a lot of times you'll have an initial meeting with the client, and the client, you know, oftentimes people aren't super comfortable in front of the camera. So if you can get in there and be like, oh my gosh, I love your love story. I really want to shoot your wedding, and let's capture this and let's capture that, and this is how we're going to do it, and I'm excited and you're excited. And if you can find a way to communicate that, that makes you much more effective, because if you can't talk confidently about your work, it's hard for people to believe that you are confident in producing your work. Now, I know in this case you're going to be talking about somebody else's work, so it's a little bit different, but you can still use those same techniques. A few other tips on body language. We won't be able to really see them in the video since it's pretty much just your head, but try not to like cross your arms or do anything that like puts objects or body parts between you and your viewer or the person that you're communicating with, because what that subconsciously communicates is that you're afraid of them, or that you're not confident in what you have to present. Whereas if you present yourself open, you know, have your arms out, don't have like your legs crossed and your arms crossed, and like hold something between you and them, it creates a much more open line of communication. It creates a sense of confidence. It creates a sense of vulnerability between you and your subject. Another thing to look out for as you're talking are filler words. all of us have filler words. Mine oftentimes is so or and it's very easy to fall back on these when we're talking and we kind of lose our train of thought, or we get ahead of ourselves, or we get nervous, and it takes time and practice to weed those out of our speech patterns. But the great thing with this is because you're recording it, you can redo sections if you'd like. So if you record a section of your presentation and you notice that you're saying so or a lot between sentences and words, just redo it, re-record it. See, I just did it right there. It happens to the best of us. But the more you practice, the more you're able to avoid that within your speech patterns, and it creates a much more effective mode of communication with other people. So another thing that's a requirement for this assignment is that you have a combination of your talking head and graphics. Now, since this isn't going to work out the same as just doing a physical presentation would, you don't necessarily need to design an entire PowerPoint for this presentation. I'll let you be a little bit more creative on how you present it. So either you can do a split screen presentation like Adobe Sparks allows us to. So for example, you could have your head talking here, and then you could have an image of your research, whether you're researching a photographer or just kind of an illustration of the ethical concept that you selected over here in the split screen. Or you can switch back and forth so that you have your talking head here for a minute, and then you can have a full screen of your graphics or a slideshow with a voiceover added on top of it. But there needs to be a good balance of both of those elements throughout the presentation, because I'm going to be grading you both on the way that you present your work as well as the graphics that you decide to include to exhibit your work. Now, this isn't a graphic design class, so I'm not expecting absolutely spectacular presentations, but I really want to see that you can apply some of those basic design principles that we've been talking about in this course as far as finding colors that work together harmoniously. So for example, I'm recording this video in a mostly neutral colored space with neutral colored clothing, so it might look really weird if I went and did neon colors in all of the graphics that I include in my PowerPoint. So maybe it'd be good to find some neutral colors that match with this as well. Or for example, this is a very sort of light, high-key exposure that I have going on here, so it might be strange to have everything else black. It might work as well, but just kind of think about how your video content is going to combine with your graphics content to create a seamless experience for me, in this case, as the viewer of your presentation.